So let me first tell you that it's really bright. That I'm a voice actor. I'm from Dallas, Texas, and this is my first time to South Carolina. I'm pretty excited to be here, and first time to be at NashiCon as well. And some of my notable roles you might know. I play the voice of Aizawa in My Hero Academia. I'm also the voice of Miles Edgeworth in Ace Attorney, as well as Susumu Kodai in Space Fellowship Yamato 2199 and 2202. That one's always kind of a mouthful. And then I play a lot of other different characters in shows you may have heard of, like Tokyo Ghoul, I play Inspector Arima, and so on and so forth, and so on and so forth. I've been voice acting for about 8 years now. I started in like 2011. And hi guys, come on in. And I never really watched the Steins Gate series. For whatever reason, there's too much really good anime, and so I didn't get a chance to watch that one. But I know the guy who did the voice of Hyomin Kyoma, and he's an amazing voice actor. His name is Michael Tatum. If you don't know who he is, he also voices Sebastian in Black Butler, same guy. And so I knew it was a really good dub. And when I learned that I was going to be able to participate in this most recent season, which was Steins Gate Zero, I was super duper extra excited about it, because going into it as I really didn't know a whole lot about the actual story, but I just knew it was a really good show, and had a great director and a lot of really good actors involved, so I was pretty pumped. But then, I don't want to give away too many spoilers here, but I play a guy named Alexis Leskinen in the show. And if you haven't seen the show, I suppose, and you don't want to know any spoilers, maybe you should leave. I don't know, because I'm going to talk a little bit about it. But so, yeah, Alexis Leskinen starts off in the series, and he's kind of this Steve Jobs kind of scientist guy with blonde hair, and he seems to be a very likable fellow. In fact, he seems to really like the main character, Hyomin Kyoma, a whole lot. And the two of them have a lot in common. And yeah, so it seems like he's going to work with Hyomin Kyoma. They're going to do this great work together around time travel. And then we start learning that there's actually, and this should be no surprise for people who are fans of the Stein Gates, either the games or the series. We start learning that there's some divergent timelines happening. And in fact, it turns out Alexis Leskinen is the bad guy. He's the main bad guy in this season. So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of surprises and twists and turns. I think that's kind of the hallmark of the Steins Gate series, is you don't ever quite know what to expect. I mean, besides the characters obviously being, very likable, it's every episode is sort of a new surprise. And then this series specifically, this season, was very dark, much more so than the previous ones. And I saw a lot of fans reacting to it online who were very surprised at the tone of the season. It was very, very different in terms of just the overall tone. And so that was fun, and it was sort of challenging too. By the end of the season, I think I died like 4 times, so which is not uncommon for Steins Gate, because there are so many different timelines in play. But yeah, I think I got shot and died 4 different times. And then a couple of the times, I also got beat up really bad, kicked in the crotch really hard, shot in the head. There was a lot of being killed by the end, which is great, because I was the main bad guy, so good prevailed over evil once again. But yeah, Steins Gate was confusing to me, because as I said, I went into it sort of not knowing a lot of the backstory of Steins Gate. And so I sort of only knew what I had seen in GIFs on Twitter. I don't know if you say GIFs or GIFs, But, so I was sort of trying to piece it together for myself based on GIFs on Twitter, which is dangerous. Because then you end up believing that the series is about how these three people invented a magical microwave, and then they're able to use this microwave to go back in time, but also it makes girls' clothes fall off. And it's sort of unclear how all those things go together. I did have a lot of help from, as I mentioned, the director and the star of the show. The director is a guy named Chris George, who works at Funimation in Dallas, where I'm from. And he fortunately was very well versed in the series. So anytime I was stepping into the booth, if I had any questions about, for example, the context, or what does this particular scene mean? Is this foreshadowing something? He usually had some kind of answer for me. So, and then Michael Tatum, who plays the lead, was very gracious. And there were times when we would run into each other in the lobby as we were recording this show and say hi. And he would say, "So how's it going?" With the character. I'm like, "It's good. I'm confused. I'm not sure, where it's going exactly." He's like, "Well, that's kind of the show." I was like, "Yeah." And then as it sort of went on, there was another time we ran into each other in the lobby, and he just kind of looked at me and he shook his head. I was like, "What? What did I do?" He's like, "I think you're going to kill me. I think you're going to kill me in this season." I was like, No, they can't kill the main character. They wouldn't do that." He's like, "I think you're going to kill me." And he was really serious about being worried about that. And now that the season has come to an end, I've had a lot of questions from fans about if there's going to be a follow-up. And of course, I have no idea. Funimation is responsible for licensing the anime from Japan and then dubbing it using English voice actors, adapting the script to a Western audience and then dubbing it. So we don't really have any inside information about whether there's going to be another season or not. I certainly hope there will be, because it seems like a really cool show. I'd like to see a lot more of it. So we'll see. Stein's Gate. What else can I tell you about Stein's Gate? I will tell you that on the first day that I auditioned for it, I knew what Steins Gate was, but I wasn't, as I said, I wasn't very familiar with the show or the storyline. So going into audition for it was a little nerve-wracking. Although when I was given direction for Alexis's character, it was really just, he's kind of like Steve Jobs, but not as cool. So I don't think of Steve. It was a little confusing because I don't think of Steve Jobs as a particularly cool guy, But I did try to take that into account as I was doing his character, and I guess I did okay because I got the part. But then later, once I started working on the show, I got on YouTube, as you'll do, on a random night or whatever, and so I typed in the name of the source material, which is just Steins Gate 0, and it brought up a bunch of cutscenes from the original visual novel. And so I was like, "Oh, this will be interesting. I'll check this out." So I started watching it, and boy, there's a lot of really bad English in the visual novel. Specifically with Alexis Leskinen talking about Japanese shaman girls. And I was not familiar with this at all until I started looking at it on YouTube. It turns out that Alexis Leskinen asking I forget the exact line, but it's like, "Where are the Japanese shaman girls?" Something like that. Is like this crazy meme that people have just memed into oblivion in 1,000 different ways. I saw Alexis Leskinen appearing in Sesame Street saying that. I saw him on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood as Mr. Rogers saying that. I saw him in My Hero Academia just appearing and asking All Might, "Where are the Japanese shaman girls?" So if you get bored one night, as I was, you can certainly look that up on YouTube, and it's pretty entertaining. So yes, that's my 20 minutes on Steins Gate, and I guess I should turn it over to questions, or see if you guys want to ask about voice acting, or see if you're interested in talking about something that's not at all covered in what we were supposed to talk about. I'm here primarily as the voice of Aizawa with My Hero Academia. There is going to be a My Hero Academia panel tomorrow, I believe at 12 o'clock, and they'll have me and Matt Shipman in it together. One question I get a lot from people when I come to conventions is if I will do the voice of Eraserhead. And sometimes people come to my table and say like, oh, can I shoot a video of you doing the voice of Eraserhead and then send it to my boyfriend or my girlfriend or my boss or whatever. And I can do it, but it does take its toll. So I typically try to keep it just to panels so that I don't end up on Sunday totally unable to use my voice because his voice is pretty deep and grating, so it does kind of take a toll. But anyway, show up to that tomorrow, and we can talk about My Hero Academia. I imagine it's going to be a lot more full tomorrow. Friday's a little bit light, pretty much always. After this also, if you paid for a pass to come to NashiCon, it means that you also have a pass to come get a free autograph, if you're interested. There's an autograph room. TJ, where's the autograph room? Is it downstairs? Yeah. So go downstairs, and there's a room where I'm going to be sitting at 8 o'clock signing autographs. Your first autograph is free, so even if you don't have like a print or something like that, I will absolutely sign your con badge, I will sign your shirt. One guy had me sign his arm. The last convention I went to, and he told me he was going to get a tattoo of it. I don't know if he actually did that, but I did advise him. As soon as I did, I said, this is a bad idea. Like, you really shouldn't. You're going to regret this. But I don't know if he followed through on that or not. See how much time we have. Maybe we should open it up to questions from the crowd. Very a lot of time. Does this thing go for an hour? Wow.
3 hours.
Stein's Gate, yeah, 3 hours of Stein's Gate. First of all, here's a good question. Has anybody watched Stein's Gate? Raise your hand. Okay, well, you guys are actually in the right place then. You were just like, well, maybe he'll have something interesting to say about Stein's Gate. We'll find out. Yeah, I don't, I wasn't in the first 2 seasons. What might be fun is a panel, and I don't think we can do it here. Maybe we can, I don't know. I would love for somebody to explain to me what is happening in Steins Gate. That would be great. Because a lot of the time, especially as I look back and try to make sense of it all, like Makise Kurisu, the whole thing around her is, I guess she invented time travel? Or she like created, yeah, right? Not exactly. Like she invented the machine, but did she do it in the future and then it went back to the past? Anyway, that's probably a different panel. That would be a fun panel though. Maybe I should do that one. I'll show up and then we'll have a microphone and we'll just say, all right, everybody get in line and answer my Steins Gate questions. That would actually be probably more fun. Does anybody want to talk about Steins Gate? Do you have questions about Steins Gate? Obviously I'm not the person to ask, but I can certainly try my best. I think we have, let's see, do we have one of these mics working? Check. We totally do. So, we'll get all this set up and then none of you will have questions. But you can definitely ask questions about whatever you want. It doesn't have to be just Steins Gate. It can be about My Hero Academia. It can be about voice acting. It could be about what did I have for lunch today. It could be anything that you would like to ask. So, do we have any brave volunteers among the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 people that are here? Yes, sir. This brave gentleman.
Okay. Alright, so this is just a voice acting question. Is there any type of character you'd like to do or would like to do you haven't done yet?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the question was, do I have a character that I like to do or that I would like to do, right? Like maybe one I haven't done yet. When I was little, I thought, well, first of all, when I was little, the voice of Kermit the Frog was still Jim Henson back then. I'm actually somewhat old. But I did think, there was a time in my life that I thought perhaps I would be a good Kermit the Frog voice actor. Maybe I could be the voice of Kermit the Frog. And so I would especially annoy my friends by just talking about, you know, everyday sorts of things. Hey, are we gonna go, let's go see the movie at like 9, is that good for you? 9 o'clock should be fine, you know, just like really just annoy people with it. It would be cool to be like an iconic character like that. I went to SAC Anime in January out in Sacramento, California, and I got to meet Charles Martinet, the voice of Mario from Super Mario Brothers. He has been the voice of that character. I think he has the Guinness World Record for being the longest to voice a character. I think it's like over 35 years or something like that. Incredibly humble, incredibly nice guy. But of course, the question that was on my mind the whole time before I met him was, is his voice gonna be like Mario? Like his real voice? You know, because, I don't know, sometimes you run into, especially singers in a band or whatever, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, and their voice is very, very, very different from the way they sing. But the opposite can also be true. You can run into voice actors or certain people, you're like, oh yeah, that's the voice. That's the same voice that you use for whatever character. So it was cool to meet him. I got to shake his hand and we talked for a little bit. His voice is not like Mario. If you ran into him, if you were at the grocery store and you were listening to him talk to the person as he was checking out, you would never think like, oh, that's the guy that's the voice of Mario. But of course, he has an amazing range. He does a lot of different characters in those games, not just Mario. I think he does Luigi. He also does Wario. And I'm pretty sure he does Waluigi too. So that was really cool to meet him. I would love to do an iconic character like that. Now, of course, I would not want to follow behind Charles Martinet. Like, let's say he, for whatever reason, stopped doing it. And then they said, oh, well, now it's an open audition. Let's get a new voice for Mario. That would suck. I think the paycheck would be good, but it'd be a really tough act to follow. It's kind of like the guy who does the voice of Kermit now. And I don't know who it is. I probably have maybe even crossed paths before at a convention or whatever. But it'd be tough. You know, it's tough shoes to fill when you're taking over for a really beloved character like that. That said, if I got a chance to do a character like Kermit the Frog, I would be super into it. I'd love to give it a shot. Good question. Does anybody else have a question? About voice acting or about the chicken tenders that I had for lunch? They were really good. They came from the concession stand. Can't recommend them enough. Yes, sir?
What's the most important thing to do to practice being a voice?
What was your question?
Like, what's the most important thing of a voice actor? What you do beforehand?
To be a voice actor? Like to become a voice actor, you mean? Yeah? Okay. Well, I would say, first of all, you have to really be interested in creating stuff, you know? Do you like creating things? Are you an artist, or are you interested in the work of other voice actors? You know, that's a good place to start. If you're already a fan of certain shows, or you like certain video games, try to figure out, as you're listening to them, try to figure out the things about it that you like the specific things, you know, not just like, oh, I love it when he screams right here. Well, why? What about that performance resonated with you, or whatever? And then, of course, I always recommend, if you want to get into voice acting, you really need to start on the stage. You need to be doing theater of some kind, probably. Even if it's just, you know, community theater or whatever. I don't know what the theater scene is like around here. Is there pretty good theater around here? Community theater, professional theater, anything like that? No? Okay.
Yeah, it's here.
Yeah. So the other thing you can do, because I have been to a couple places where the theater scene is kind of dead, is YouTube. I don't know if you've ever thought about doing like a YouTube channel, but that could be a good idea too. YouTube obviously is where a lot of voice actors actually get their start these days. Doing, you know, funny videos, or like doing a bridge series of anime. That's a way you can get started too. Yeah, okay. Yes, sir.
So, it's time for a question, guys. What was it like to film all your deaths?
What was it like to what?
Film all your death scenes?
Oh yeah, my own death scene. I was in a show called Laughing Under the Clouds. Does Has anybody ever seen the show, or even heard of it? It was the very first simuldub that Funimation ever did, and it was back in 2014. For those that don't know, a simuldub is when we have Funimation releases an English dub at the same time that the Japanese episode comes out. Either at the same time or slightly afterwards, like a week afterwards. The very first simuldub at Funimation was a show called Laughing Under the Clouds. And I got to play the lead in that show. And I don't ever read the manga, I don't ever read ahead, I don't ever know quite what's happening because of this show. At the time, the manga was not available. I think it was a light novel actually, it was not available. So even if I wanted to know what was going on, I couldn't. And I came into the studio one day, and I went into the booth, and my director's like, ready to get going? Yeah. And they pulls up the script. So you have the script on one computer monitor in front of you, and then you have the actual scene that's happening in the show on the other monitor. And so you got headphones on, got a mic in front of you. You're looking at the script and reading through it, and you hear beeps in your ear, 3 beeps. And in the place where the 4th beep would be, that's where you start talking. And you match the line to the flaps of the character. And you try to fit the line into the flaps of the character. So I'm getting ready to start doing that. And I start reading ahead in the script a little bit, and it becomes clear to me that this character is about to be executed. He's about to be hung by his neck until he's dead. So I got this feeling that was a very real feeling for me. It was like, I felt really sad that this character was dying, but also shocked. I felt really shocked. And in the show, the character is very sad and very shocked. So it turned out that that was a great idea to not know that was coming. Because in the moment, I was able to sort of use some organic feelings that came up when I saw that in the performance. And I think it helped with the performance a little bit. Certainly made me feel like I was getting into it a lot more than perhaps I would have. If I had known, oh, this is the episode where he dies. You know, okay, so I gotta prepare myself, really get in my head about it, and really think about it. How am I gonna approach this? Like, no, I didn't have to do any of that. I just showed up and died. And that was great, you know, I like that. Like, if a racerhead from My Hero Academia ever dies, God forbid, I don't want to know. Like, I want to go into the booth, and I want to die with that character. I think that's probably going to be the best way to do it for me. Everybody has their own little process. Everybody has their own way of doing it, but that's what's worked for me.
Well, going forward, then, did you know your character was going to turn out to be bad?
My character was going to be bad? No, I had no idea.
Did it actually come to a shock to you as well?
No idea. Yeah. Well, and you know, the way the season sort of unfolds is like, well, clearly somebody's behind the scenes, like, you know, opposing him, but it's not clear who. And then there's these agents that appear to be coming, you know, back from the future, but they don't seem to be related to him at all. So I guess in the back of my head, I thought, he's such a big character in the show. He has to be a big character in the show for some reason. So, you know, you sort of can't help yourself from wondering about it. Like, man, I wonder if he's like, maybe he's the villain, you know? So I did wonder about it, of course. Mostly because he's just so douchey. You know, he's so fake, you know, and everything about him just felt fake to me. His plastered on smile, and it's just like, oh, good to see you! You know, just everything he does is so car salesman-y, I suppose. Like, he's a salesman. Nothing wrong with salesman, by the way, but just that sort of that fake grandiosity, I guess. That by the time I got to the point where he was a villain, I was kind of like, oh, thank God he's a villain. I'm glad I don't have to really get too invested in liking this guy, because he's kind of unlikable in some ways. So I would say, yeah, it was a surprise, but it was like a happy surprise. It was kind of a happy surprise, like, oh, he's gonna get killed 4 times. All right, excellent. And he's a total jerk. I mean, the parts where he's on the roof and they're having a final showdown, you know, you really see his true colors in those moments, and he's just a vicious, you know, power-mad psychopath, which all those guys need to die. So yeah, that's, I guess, my answer to that. Any other questions? Could be about that, could be about anything at all. but you might be interested in. Yes?
Like, how did they inform you when they're trying to build a new show and they tell you about audition?
Yes. And my answer for it right now is probably not actually that useful. I remember I talked to you a little bit ago. You're thinking about being a voice actor, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, my answer today is not very helpful to you. My answer today is they contact my agent, and then my agent tells me what's going on, and I go do it. But I didn't always have an agent, so there was a time before that I was just trying to get into Funimation any way I could. And there was a time in the past that they used to actually have an email address you could send your demo to, and it was like demos@funimation.com or something like that. They don't have it, they got rid of it, so it's not around anymore. But yeah, so I mean, and when I first reached out to them, I really just sent an email, and I was like, hey, my name's Christopher Wehkamp. I'm an actor. I listed a couple of my credits. Like, here's a couple things I've done around town, and they weren't like big things. They were like a couple plays that I was in and one commercial that I had done. And from that, I got a response back within about a month, and they said, we'd like for you to come in and audition. So these days, it's much more difficult, and part of it is because so many people want to do it now that they had to get rid of that email address because they were just getting inundated with demos constantly all the time. So they just got rid of it. The way that I know that people get into it today, specifically at Funimation, which is where I have the most experience, so I can kind of speak to that, is they moved to Dallas. It's very rare, even with the internet being as amazing as it is, it's very rare for people to live in other places and dub anime at Funimation in Dallas. Almost everybody lives in Dallas that works. Now, there are rare sort of cases where voice actors could live in Los Angeles and then do like what's called a source connect session, which is like a really high fidelity audio recording session that they do. It's kind of like a Skype call, but it's like the best quality you've ever heard in your life. And they'll do a remote directing session with an actor who's in Los Angeles. But even that doesn't really happen all that much anymore because it's expensive. So there's a cost involved. So the answer is, if you want to work at Funimation, you have to move to Dallas. And then the answer is, if you want to work at like Bang Zoom, which is another dubbing house, that's out in Los Angeles. You have to move to Los Angeles. There's another dubbing house up in Vancouver, and you would have to move to Vancouver. Now, as far as like getting training and things like that, there are things online you can do. As far as actually booking the work and like getting auditions, the auditions that I did for Funimation, I did it in person. So like I would go into the studio and you gotta be there for it. The other thing is, with the simul-dubs at Funimation being what they are, the turnaround times are incredibly tight. So like if there's a new episode that comes out of My Hero Academia, which season 4 is coming out in October, the producer's gonna come to me and say, hey, and actually they'll come to my agent, but in the past they would come to you personally and they would say, hey, you have to stay in town for the next 12 weeks. Like, you can't leave. Because every single week, we have to record. You're gonna be in the studio recording. Do you have any conflicts with that? Are there any issues that we need to know about to try to work around? And there are cases where, especially with voice actors who get sick, or most recently there was a voice actress who gave birth to their first child, and so she just couldn't, she couldn't go into voice act. And they had to get somebody to voice match her for like one episode, because the episodes got to keep coming. It's like the simul-dub deadlines don't end; they just keep coming. And part of that has to do with our licensing agreements with the Japanese producers too. So Funimation, for example, with My Hero Academia, signs up to produce the dub of that show, and then they say, well, we're going to produce the dub of that show on this date to start, and then here's every single date that we're going to release the episodes in that season. And if you don't hit those dates, you run the risk of like violating your licensing agreement with the studio. That's bad, because then you can, that has serious repercussions. So So for Funimation, it's like you have to be in town, and you have to be there. You have to be able to, like, if they call you in for something at 10 a.m., you have to be there, you know, at 10 a.m. that day, even if it's the night before. You got to be very available. But it's really fun work. I mean, it's super fun. I think it's the most fun thing I've ever done. I've worked a lot of different jobs. You know, as an actor, you do a whole lot of different jobs. I waited tables at Red Lobster. I think that was the worst job I've ever had in my life. Oh, it was bad. Do they have Red Lobster here? Oh man, something happens to people when they go to that restaurant. I don't know what it is, but they just lose their minds. They become their worst self somehow. I think it's the Cheddar Bay biscuits. I think actually that's what does it. It's just the Cheddar Bay, too many Cheddar Bay biscuits. But yeah, that's the answer. Any other questions?
So, when you go to audition, do they tell you anything about the character beforehand, or they show you a picture of what the character looks like?
Typically you will, you know, if it's at Funimation, typically you will, you'll get a sheet, they're called sides, and it's like a sheet of paper, and it'll have a picture of the character, and maybe a brief description of, you know, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example. Shota Aizawa is somewhere, you know, early middle age, 30s to early middle age, teacher of a class of super powered students who all go to school at UA High. Like incredibly generic, you know, just a broad brush, not even a lot of details about like his personality, and part of that is because they want you to go in there and bring yourself to it, right? So they don't want to limit it too much with a lot of details because they want you to kind of come in and put yourself into the role, right? That's pretty common. It's a lot less common with things that aren't dubbed. So for example, I just finished work, well, I got a little bit more to do, but on a pretty big video game that's coming out soon. And I had no, you know, art to go off of. I had nothing really beyond, this is what we think this character is going to do. We're not actually sure. We're still writing the thing, like as you're auditioning for it, so there's not a lot of information. And in that case, your audition could actually end up being the character. You know, they may have sort of a vague idea in their mind, like, we think he's kind of like this. But if you come in and do something really interesting that they didn't think of, but they really like it, you know, that could be the thing that they go, oh, that's actually way better than what we were thinking of. You know, this is the story of how sometimes, especially with movies, you know, big budget Hollywood stuff, you'll see directors thank the actors. Sometimes they're thanking them because the actors are the ones that really built the characters. Like I'm thinking of Robert Downey Jr. Robert Downey Jr. No, not Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man in the Avengers series. Like you can write that character all day long. Like you can sit down and write Iron Man 1, and you can have a clear idea of how Tony Stark is going to be this millionaire playboy. But they're not the ones who really created that character. And I guarantee you, when he was going in there to do those parts, there were a lot of lines that he was just coming up with, you know. And they were like, "What was that? That was good." Especially the funny stuff that he does, especially in the first Iron Man, but in every one of those Avengers movies. So sometimes, yeah, as an actor, you want to try to go in and give them what they want, even if they don't know what they want. You know, maybe especially if they don't know what they want. Make bold decisions. Any other questions? Yes?
So I guess a question concerning the dub. When like Funimation, like a character like Razorhead or whatever, do they push you to try and do something like the Japanese voice actor, or do they want you to do your own thing?
So yeah, the answer is, and especially with something like My Hero Academia, which is a huge franchise now and very popular, it's extremely important to honor the Japanese performance in every decision that's being made. So, you know, we're going into the booth with a script that is an adapted script. So the line in Japanese might directly translate to, put it down because no one ever said it first like he has. Well, that doesn't make any sense really to a Western ear. It's a totally different alphabet, totally different language. So you have to adapt it to something that makes sense for a Western ear, like drop it or else I'm gonna kick your butt. You know, it has to be something, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a totally different language. So that said, there's already decisions that are made that make it different from the Japanese by the time I ever get there. And it's been done because it has to be adapted for a Western ear script. But when I get there, and it's my job to deliver those lines, part of my job is delivering something that is faithful to the original performance, but also adapted for a Western audience. So that's a tricky thing to do. One of the things that they always try to do is get people whose voice range is similar to the original Japanese sage. So it would almost, is anybody watching Black Clover? Yeah. So the main protagonist, the main character, has the most annoying, I'm in Black Clover, so I can say this, I suppose. I don't know. I love Dallas, the guy who plays the role of Asta in that show. But especially like the first 3 or 4 episodes, it's just like screaming constantly. And so you can't go into that role for a dub, just be like, we're not gonna scream as much. You just can't. I mean, you have to scream exactly as much, as they do. Otherwise, you're really not adapting. Now I guess you're creating something totally different if you go in there and you don't sort of honor that. And Funimation has a pretty good reputation for producing dubs that at least, even if we don't always hit it right on the head, it always makes an effort to get as close as possible to the original meaning. They're just 2 totally different languages, so it's tough. Yeah. Black Clover is a really funny show. I play one of Noel's brothers, actually, Solid Silva, who is just a total jerk. The guy is so mean. And so unnecessarily mean. A lot of times I'm able to get in there and I'm able to at least find some motivation. Like Alexis Leskinen, I mean, he wants to rule the world, basically. So that's pretty easy. That's pretty easy motivation. Of course, it's terrible and evil, but I get it, I don't know what Solid Soul is trying to do beyond just be terrible to his sister. So that's the only motivation I can really come up with for him. It is fun to be bad guys, I will say. I've been, a lot of good guys and a lot of bad guys. As bad guys, you end up getting to make a lot more interesting choices, a lot more interesting decisions than you do as a good guy. With the good guy, you pretty much always know what's coming, what it's going to be. With the bad guys, there's a lot more surprises. Especially the bad guys that are a little bit, more complex. Maybe they have a very, I'll give you an example. If you know Stein from My Hero Academia, love that bad guy. That is like one of my favorite bad guys because he's so layered. And once he really explains himself, you're like, oh, actually he's kind of right. He's doing the wrong thing about it. And he's going about it all wrong. But he's got a point. I can really see where he's coming from on that. Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker in The Dark Knight, what made that so compelling for me is you can kind of see where he was coming from. He's talking about how everything is so corrupt, and so burning it all down is the only solution. Obviousthat's the wrong solution. You can't kill all these people. But at the same time, his point is correct. So anyway, that was a tangent, but I really like Stein. Any other questions? Least favorite My Hero character. I'll tell you this: if you come to the My Hero Academia panel tomorrow, I'll probably just say Matt's character, since he's going to be there too. If you ask that question, I'll be like, Gale Force. He plays Gale Force. That's not the real answer. The real answer is, if I was Aizawa, the real answer would be Bakugo, because that kid's trouble. That kid's big time trouble. If he's not a villain in training, you know what I mean? I feel like Aizawa has just really got an eye on him. It'd probably be Bakugo. Plus, he's always yelling all the time. It's annoying. Aizawa's just trying to go to sleep, just get some rest. And then just, me personally, my least favorite character in My Hero Academia. Who's the guy that talks to animals? Coda? I like Coda. He's sweet, he's cute, but I do sort of feel like maybe he's just too quiet. Like I want him to speak up more instead of just being in the background and sort of looking around like he's always scared. I want to be like, summon a bunch of badgers or something. Do something awesome with your quirk. Don't be so shy. Maybe that's my answer. Who is your least favorite character in My Hero Academia? Don't say erase your hand. Oh, Minetta. Yeah. I get that. I get that.
So, I want to hold
Yeah, the voice that Brina does for that character is really funny. But also, I can see how, yes, you would feel it's annoying too. He's an annoying character. But I feel like they wrote him that way. It's not his fault. They just wrote it that way.
I mean, he does it really well. It's just he's like,
Yeah, I hear you. All right, I think we got like 10 minutes left here. Yeah. Any other questions? Could be about Steins Gate, could be about One Piece. I'm trying to think of other shows. Could be about Star Blazers, could be about Tokyo Ghoul. I played 2 characters in Tokyo Ghoul. And they're both pretty messed up characters. Fairy Tail. Wow, okay. Fairy Tail, yes, Fairy Tail. This is the quote-unquote final season of Fairy Tail happening right now. I think this is the thing that they do, and I don't have any inside information at all. Just an outside observer who happens to also play a couple characters on the show. I think this is the same thing that bands do, where they're like, this is our final tour. We're come out and see us. This is our final tour. I gotta believe they're gonna make more Fairy Tail at some point, even if there's not more manga for it, because it's just too popular. Anyway, I play Ren Akatsuki from the Blue Pegasus Guild, and then I also play Mest Grinder, a dude who has a very ill-advised turtleneck with no sleeves. It's very interesting, and then teleports around all over the place. Although he's kind of missing right now. I don't know what happened to him. He's just gone right now. They haven't covered that at all. He teleported out of the series for this most recent season. Any questions about Fairy Tail? Excited people in the back. Excited Fairy Tail fan in the back. All right, so the deal is, if you want, I'm going to be walking from here over to the autographs section, which is downstairs. And I'm told that I'm going to be setting up there to sign autographs. So if you guys want, please, come do that. Tomorrow, I also have My Hero Academia panel that I'm doing with Matt Shipman, as I said. I think that's at 12. And if otherwise, just come see me at my table. I'm over in the dealer's room. Some of you have come by already, I recognize. So come see me over there too, we can chat. Thank you guys very much.